Have you ever walked into practice feeling excited and motivated, only to leave feeling frustrated, discouraged, or emotionally drained? Nothing catastrophic happened, but by the end of practice, your confidence, clarity, and motivation had taken a hit. If your answer is yes, and for most athletes it is, stick around because today we're talking about how to protect your mindset from being hijacked by negative teammates and even coaches. Because if you're not intentional about training your mind, someone else will do it for you. Welcome back to the Mental Weight Room, where we train the brain just like you train your body. I'm Antoinette Datoc, certified mental performance coach, and today we're talking about protecting your mindset. As athletes, you're intentional about training your body. You practice, you recover, you fuel, you work on your speed, strength, and conditioning. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably just as intentional about training your mindset and building mental strength. We talk a lot about the inner voice, how it can shape your mindset in ways that either support or sabotage your goals. But here's the thing. Your voice isn't the only one fueling your mindset. Your voice isn't the only one you hear. Every day, you're surrounded by other people's voices too. Teammates, coaches, teachers, parents, siblings, social media. And while it might seem harmless, every one of those voices is shaping the way you think. Research shows that repeated exposure to negative talk doesn't just affect your mood, it triggers the release of cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone. And over time, chronically elevated cortisol has been linked to changes in the hippocampus, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex. Those are all areas of the brain involved in memory, emotional regulation, and decision making. In other words, negativity is contagious because your brain believes what it hears repeatedly. Whether that message comes from your own self-talk, a teammate, a coach, a parent, or anyone, repetition strengthens neural pathways. You've heard me talk about neuroplasticity? Well, that's neuroplasticity at work. And unfortunately, it can work against us because the brain adapts to whatever it experiences over and over again. So if the message you repeatedly hear is, "We're terrible," your brain starts looking for evidence that it's true. If the message is, "I'm always messing up," eventually that becomes your identity. Your brain isn't very good at distinguishing between what's true and what's repeated. It simply learns from repetition. That's why protecting your mindset is every bit as important as protecting your physical health. There's another reason why this matters. Our brains have what's called a negativity bias. From an evolutionary standpoint, paying attention to threats helped our ancestors survive. As a result, your brain naturally pays more attention to modern threats, things like criticism, shaming, fear of failure, problems, and other negative self-talk, than it does to compliments or success. That's why one negative comment can outweigh 10 positive ones. It's why one teammate complaining can suddenly make practice feel miserable. It's why one coach's criticism can echo in your mind long after practice is over, even if that same coach gave you several compliments that day. Your brain pays attention to what feels threatening. Then repetition takes over. The more often you hear something, the more familiar it becomes, and familiar thoughts begin to feel like facts. That's why negativity spreads so easily. Now let's talk about the team complainer. Every team has one. You know, the teammate who complains about everything. Now, first, let me be clear. I'm not talking about teammates who are genuinely struggling. Life happens, injuries happen, illnesses happen. People face all types of hardships. Those teammates deserve compassion. They deserve friends and teammates who will sit beside them without trying to fix everything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about chronic complainers, the people who make complaining a habit. They rarely notice what's good because they're always searching for what's wrong or worse, making excuses. This conditioning is stupid. The coach plays favorites. He doesn't like me. The refs always cheat us. We're never going to beat this team. At first, you might be able to ignore it, but after hearing the same complaints every day, over and over, something in the brain changes. You start looking for evidence that they're right. Maybe the coach does have favorites. Maybe the officials are against us. Maybe we really can't win. Notice what happened? Nothing around you changed. Your mindset did. That's why mentally strong athletes are careful about the conversations they repeatedly participate in. Now let's talk about something that's a little harder to handle. Sometimes the negativity comes from a coach or a parent. Let me say this first. Coaches and parents genuinely care deeply about their athletes. They want you to improve. And like all of us, they have difficult days. Sometimes frustration spills over into their coaching or parenting. Maybe they focus almost exclusively on mistakes. Maybe you leave practice or the car ride home feeling like nothing you do is ever enough. If that's your experience, here's something I hope you'll remember. A coach or a parent's communication does not have to become your inner voice. I'm going to repeat that because it's very important. A coach's or your parent's communication style does not have to become your inner voice. Take the instruction, learn from the feedback, be respectful, correct the mistake, but don't allow repeated criticism to become the soundtrack playing in your own brain. Your inner voice should sound like a coach or a parent who wants you to improve, not one who tears you down. Feedback should shape your performance. It should never define your identity or negatively impact your mindset. One of my favorite reminders is this: don't let someone else's story become your future. Just because a teammate believes the season is over, it doesn't mean it is. Just because someone else has lost confidence doesn't mean you have to. Just because your coach is frustrated today doesn't mean you need to carry that frustration home. Every athlete has to decide whose voice gets repeated in his or her own head, because the voices you rehearse become the beliefs you build, and the beliefs you build eventually shape your mindset and your performance. So, how do you protect your mindset? First, become aware of what you're absorbing, of what you're listening to. Pay attention to how you feel after conversations. Do certain teammates or people leave you motivated, or do they leave you discouraged and emotionally exhausted? Awareness always comes before change. Second, reframe the conversation just like you would reframe your own inner voice. Redirect a complainer towards solutions. When a teammate says, "This is pointless," ask, "So what can we control in this situation?" That's one of the most powerful questions in sports. Champions don't ignore problems. They focus on solutions. They remain curious. Third, replace borrowed thoughts with intentional thoughts. If you catch yourself thinking, "We're never going to win," ask yourself, "Did I think of that? Did that thought start with me?" If not, replace it with something that's both truthful and productive. "We're improving. We're getting stronger. We'll control what we can control." Remember, your brain believes what it hears repeatedly. Choose your repetitions wisely. Fourth, choose your inner circle carefully. Mindsets spread. They are contagious. So spend more time with athletes who work hard, take ownership, stay optimistic, accept coaching, encourage others. And finally, breathe. When you feel stress creeping up on you because of someone else's behavior, breathe. A few deep belly breaths or 4x4x4x4 box breathing thwarts cortisol secretion and resets your brain and nervous system. It literally calms you down. Remember, the people around you are training your brain whether you realize it or not, so choose wisely. Now, none of this means you stop caring about your teammates. In fact, I hope you're the teammate who encourages others, who listens, who supports, who builds people up. But there's a difference between empathy and absorption. You can care about someone without carrying their mindset. You can encourage someone without joining them in their negativity. Being compassionate doesn't require becoming emotionally contagious. Protecting your mindset isn't selfish, it's responsible. One of the reasons I named this podcast The Mental Weight Room is because your brain needs intentional training just like your body does. Nobody accidentally becomes physically strong, and nobody accidentally becomes mentally strong. It takes repetition, intentional repetition. Every positive or neutral thought you intentionally rehearse, every solution-focused conversation, every encouraging teammate you spend time with, every time you challenge a negative thought instead of accepting it, you're strengthening the mental pathways you want your brain to use under pressure. That's how mental strength is built, not by wishing for it, by training it. So here's the question I want to leave you with today. When you leave practice, whose voice are you still hearing? Is it yours or someone else's? Don't let someone else's fear Complaints, frustration, or negativity become your permanent inner voice. Guard your mindset. Train your thoughts intentionally. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow instead of inviting you to complain. Because the strongest athletes aren't just physically disciplined, they're disciplined about what they allow into their brains. Thanks for tuning in today. If this episode resonated with you or encouraged you, click like, drop me a comment to let me know, share it with a teammate, a coach, or a parent who might benefit from listening. And don't forget to subscribe to the Mental Weight Room or follow us on social media so you never miss a mental training session. This is Coach Antoinette signing off. And until next time, keep training your brain like you train your body and keep pushing your limits.